Hi there guys, this is Connor, subbing in for Matt on Total MTG. I'm here with my first ever solo production on the channel. Can't see, but I'm flailing my arms wildly because I'm so excited. What I've come to do is I've come to show you my Black-White Allies deck. A couple of people asked for a deck tech. And we always run out of time because we're too busy playing Magic and then I go home. So we've come here to do it now. So we're going to move these out of the way. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the creatures. So what we got here, as you can see, is 4 Expedition Envoys. I'll just hold those there for you. It's a 1 white mana ally, 2/1. It's pretty simple, it's very effective. If you can drop it turn 1 and start bashing into people, those 2 to 4 to 6 damage that you can get in before they get blockers down really makes a difference in the game later, especially if you start to run out of gas and you're sort of exchanging life with some of the cards we'll see in a minute. So it's solid. Definitely 4 of, easy. Real powerhouse in the deck, Clash Healer, 1 and a black, again another ally. So whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So 1/2, so it can block a couple of bits and pieces. You usually don't want to block though, just in case there's combat tricks, because this is really integral to the deck. It means every time you drop the 2 life swap, it means that you don't necessarily need to block the 1 or 2 damages because you're gaining that life. So we run 4 of these. If you get 2, 3, 4 of these on the battlefield, you start, every time you play an ally, you start sort of swapping 2 life, swapping 6 life, swapping sort of 8 life every time you play something. It just gets really, really strong. And it interacts with one of the sideboard cards that I'll show you later. So 4 of those. Very similar card, Zulaport Cutthroat, 1 and a black, 1/1. Again, you don't really want to block with this, it's another ally. They're all allies apart from 2 of the creatures in here, so I'll stop mentioning that. But whenever it or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. So very similar to the Clash Healer. If you've got sort of this and a Clash Healer out, your opponent is scared of you both playing creatures and killing them. Sometimes means that they don't block some damage going through, or sometimes you don't mind sort of trading off some of your other creatures. If you've got some tokens from Gideon or Captain's Claws, you don't mind just chucking those away and swapping the life around, save yourself and sort of kill them a bit. You've seen in some of the videos we've actually done some really good work sort of sacrificing creatures with Ailey, just to sort of get some bits of life loss through. So 4 of those without fail. First thing we don't have 4 copies of, Core Bladewell. It's a 2/2, 1 and a white, again ally. Rally, whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, creature control gain first strike. This can be really good in combat, especially if you drop this down and you give Ailey, Eternal Pilgrim, first strike because she's got Death Touch. Again, it's just another combat trick, and you'll see with the whole deck it's about getting as many creatures as you can down. So we run about 26 creatures. Most of the non-creature spells we play also sort of create creatures. So again, I just mentioned it, Ailey. This is the only card in here that's not an ally. We tend to sideboard it out at times for different bits and pieces of removal, but there's a lot of creatures floating around, and it's good to have a blocker where you know you can trade with a 4/5 Sylvan Advocate, or you can trade with something else big, and also you can sacrifice creatures to gain life for 1 mana, which interacts with some of our other cards I'll mention later. The bottom ability has only ever been relevant for me once, but I mean, if you're grinding out in the long game, you've got a lot of life, you need to get rid of some threats. It can do the job for you. So it's 2/3 as well, so it's a pretty good body for 2 mana. We'll run 2 of those. Don't want to run too many because we don't want to take away from the rally triggers. So back on board the ally train, we've got Lantern Scout, 2 and a white. Matt absolutely hates this card, gives all your guys lifelink until end of turn whenever it or another ally enters the battlefield, and it's a 3/2, so this is where maybe if you've been losing some life, you drop this down and it just changes the game, it just turns it around. 4 of these, really strong. Another really strong card, especially in conjunction with Lantern Scout if you hit them for sort of lifelink as well. In the air, a lot of people struggle with flying at the moment. Sort of some of the human decks and some of the other decks sort of don't have many flyers. So you're flying in with first strike. It's an ally again. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So this hits on a first strike, gets a counter, and then everything else that's attacking with it gets bigger, of course, unless they block it. So they're either going to start chumping it, or as long as you're careful with how you attack in, you shouldn't lose it, and you should do pretty well. Speaking of Drana, we've got Drana's Emissary. 1 white black, fits in the curve very nicely. It's 2/2 flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1. So you see here we're starting to sort of just basically chip away at your opponent's life total and keep yours either above 20 or as close to 20 as you can, just so that you know you can afford to take a hit from a 5/5 Reality Smasher dropped later in the game, because your opponent's down on low life, or you can throw your Zula ports underneath it or something else underneath it and get life that way. And sometimes they can't attack because they know if you lose your guys you're going to win. So this kind of puts a bit of a clock on things, and it's just a solid flying body, which again I mentioned a lot of people struggle with. So 2 of those. And 4-drop creature, we've got Cliffhaven Vampire. Again, another flyer, which is incredibly relevant in the format at the moment. 2/4, so it blocks a lot of things as well. And whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1. So you see how much life gain we've got in here. So Zulaport Cutthroat, creature dies, you gain 1, your opponent loses 1, and then your opponent loses another 1 from this trigger. You start to see how we can stack up triggers and really, really do the work. So we've got 2 of those. So that's all of our creatures. So we're just going to put those over here. Again, pretty much you want everything that says ally on it. It's a pretty stable creature base, so I wouldn't change it around too much, but there is some other bits and pieces if you want to put other colours in, there's some stuff as well. So non-creature spells, we've got Captain's Claws, 2-drop, equipped for 1. A quick creature gets +1/+0, so you chuck it on one of your flyers, get a bit more damage through. Whenever it attacks, you get a 1/1 core ally onto the battlefield, so you get one of these lovely little tokens here. Attacking as well, so it's okay. I mean, sometimes they'll just block the 1/1, but if you've got Zulaport, then they're going to lose life. If you've got Clastria Healer, they're going to lose life. If you've got something with Rally, so if you want to give you guys lifelink, every time you attack, you're now getting lifelink because allies entered the battlefield. So we run 2 of those. This is something we tend to sideboard out for some removal. If we find that literally we just need to be aggressive and hit face a lot, we'll leave these in. If we find that there's a lot of threats, so there's a few Kalitas's around, then we'll sideboard, and I'll show you our sideboard options later. So we have got some removal in the deck. Anguished Unmaking, 1 a white and a black, exile target non-land permanent, you lose 1 life, instant speed. Incredibly versatile, don't really care about the free life, it's just a great card. Again, something you can sideboard out for other bits and pieces of removal. So your Captain's Claws and your Anguished Unmaking is usually what you want to sideboard out for something else. And sometimes A-League, she's not an ally. Always Watching, non-token creatures you control have +1/+1 vigilance. Again, buffing your flyers, buffing your other guys, just putting your damage through, beating face, everyone knows this is a really strong card. When you start to play Gideon as well and you set his emblem off, your 2/1 starts to become in sort of a 5/4 with vigilance. If you start to drop some Gideon emblems, you drop a couple of these, or he's got some counters from Drana, you know, it gets really strong, and those little guys do real solid work. We've got 2 of those. Probably might want to run 3 and drop something else out. Maybe drop a Captain's Claws and run 3 and then swap the other Captain's Claws for something else, depending on how you preference, how you want to play, and what cards you've got. Real powerhouse of the deck, Gideon, 2 and 2 white, +1 until end of turn it becomes an ally, 5/5. It's indestructible and prevent all damage that's dealt to him. So this is where you can start to see where if they've got sort of big guys and you need to go in and trade, you can start throwing Gideon at them, really do some work, get in the late game. 0, put 2/2 Knight Ally, so get one of these lovely tokens. And then they can be great blockers, trigger rally, and you start to just build up a guy. -4, you get one of these. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So sometimes you'll spit Gideon out and drop that straight away if you've got multiple in hand, or if you're just sort of, you've got a wide state already and you just want to buff with Always Watching. So we've got 4 of those. And then Soaring Grim Nemesis. This is again, it's a card I'm not sure about, you might want to swap it some other allies. 4 white and a black. I found some games to go to the long game and I needed something to push through the last 4 or 5 damage. So +1, you reveal the top card of your library, put it into your hand, each opponent loses life equal to its CMC. We got a lot of low drop guys, but that last 2 bits of damage can do real work, and if you draw a Clastria Healer off of it, or you draw some more allies to trigger your life swap, then you're doing real work there. Minus X, deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker and you gain 6 life, so there's a lot of things you can remove with that. And again, life gain. It starts on 6 loyalty, so you can do a lot of damage there. Minus 9, something I've never set off, but put a number of 1/1 black vampire knights onto the battlefield with lifelink, equal to the highest life total among all players. Usually your life total by this point, but you can see how you could get a big army, so we run 2 of those. So that's all our creatures and non-creatures. The only thing we're going to quickly run through is the land. Obviously, ally encampment, incredibly relevant. Add 1 to your mana pool. It's also a colourless if for some reason you wanted to put some Eldrazi or something like that in. Or you can tap it and add 1 mana for ally spells. 1 mana of any colour, so that's really strong. It can mess you up a bit trying to play Gideon, trying to play Sorin, trying to play Always Watching, but it tends to be really strong, so we run 4 of those. We've got Caves of Koilos. Again, white and black, doesn't come in tapped, it's quite quick. Don't matter about the 1 life because we usually gain in life every turn anyway. So we got 3 of those. I'd probably run 4. I just don't have a 4th one. Shambling Vent, tap to add a white or a black, and it's battlefield tapped, so it's a slow land, unfortunately. 1 a white and a black, comes a 2/3 elemental with lifelink. Again, really strong. If you've got Always Watching out as well, it gives it vigilance, so you can attack and then use it for mana. And it does some good work in some of the blocks in the format. It's a really powerful card. Run 2 of these. You might want to up it to 3. Probably wouldn't want 4. The reason I say 3 is because I run a Forsaken Sanctuary as a 3rd land because I don't have another one. So you probably want to swap this for a Shambling Vent. You may want to up the Forsaken Sanctuaries just for multicoloured lands, but we find that having some plains. So we got 7 plains and 5 swamps. You know, you really want to get out swinging with this deck, so you don't want to be sort of sitting there and not doing anything. So you really want some basic lands there, so you can just get in swinging straight away. Just getting my deck box out. I'm just going to whiz through the sideboard. It's just a lot of removals. So Ruinous Path, destroy target creature or planeswalker, awaken for 7. If you're in the really long game, as you just saw, we've only got sort of 21, 22 lands, so you don't tend to awaken, but if you need to deal with a specific threat, you're going to want Ruinous Path, so just 1. Alternatively, to the slaughter, target player sacrifice a creature or a planeswalker, 2 and a single black mana, so it's a lot easier to cast, but they get to choose what they do. You might have Delirium, usually not because we're very creature heavy. If you do happen to have Delirium, then they do both. It's a pretty strong card, especially if they're just running Jace as their only creature that's on the battlefield turn 3 after they've played it turn 2, you get rid of that. Or if they've flipped it, you know, you could do some solid work. There's 2 of those. 2 Silk Wraps, exiles target creature CMC 3 or less. There's a lot of threats this gets rid of, as I just mentioned, Jace. There's just loads of things you can kill off. You know, when you're playing mono white humans, it's really good against a lot of those cards. Surge of Righteousness, you see a common thing with this sideboard, it's just a lot of removal. As I mentioned, you can take out the Anguished Unmaking, swap it for some more relevant removal. You can take out the Captain's Clause, swap that for some removal. Sometimes if you're finding you're not getting to the late game, you might want to swap your Sorins out for some, again, more specific removal. Just play around with what you do in the matchup. So destroy target black or red creature that's attacking or blocking. You gain 2 life, so that gets rid of your some of the big goblins. That the Goblin Dark Dwellers, I believe, brings back the spell. You can also get rid of Kalitas with this and gain some life, so if you've been getting punched in the face, you can sort of recover a bit. Speaking of Kalitas, I found her a real problem. So we've got Tainted Remedy. If an opponent would gain life, that player loses that much life instead. They don't want to block with Kalitas, they don't want to attack with Kalitas, and also it stops if you've got a mirror match where someone else is gaining a lot of life, just sort of puts you ahead on the game. Flaying Tendrils, what I found was green-black Aristocats is very popular at the moment, green-black sort of sacrifice engines. What you tend to want to do is you'll smash face with your guys, you'll do unfortunate trades, you'll block your guys in a way that gets your guys into the graveyard. Then you'll cast this, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. If it would die, exile it instead. Gets rid of their Zulaport Cutthroat triggers, and it kills a lot of the things in that matchup, so this really did work for me at game day. There's 2 of these, and you want to run this when you put it in conjunction with March from the Tomb. What you want to try and do is, rather than getting your guys killed by the Flaming Tendrils, you want to kill them some other way. Just throw them at the guys, either do damage or kill them some other way, because then you can use your Flaming Tendrils to set up a bit late in the game, and then bring back any number of allies with CMC 8 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you get 4 Calastria healers back, you're doing about 16 damage. It's ridiculous. So if you go into the late game, this is really strong, so you probably want to swap those for Sorins as a big drop. If you're playing some Eldrazi, you probably want a Quarantine Field, or if you're playing some things with maybe they've got a variety of threats, they've got some enchantments, artifacts you want to get rid of, maybe you want to play Quarantine Field, 4 drop, get rid of something, 6 drop, get rid of 2 things. It can be good in late game. We only got 1, because it's not essential, but it has helped me out in some pinches. Maybe instead of Fate Forgotten, I'd probably run another Anguish Making in the sideboard. But we've got Fate Forgotten, exile target artifact or enchantment at instant speed for 2 and a white. There's a lot of sort of goggles decks, there's a lot of always watchings around. You want to use these to get rid of this. If you have any ideas about the deck, drop them in the comments. We'll put a link to the page on Tapped Out, so you can have any comments. And from me and Gideon, it's goodbye and thank you for watching my first solo video. See you later guys, don't forget to hit subscribe.